Hey there. Welcome to level two, working with our kitties. If you are taking this e-module, it's because you want to spend more time with our shelter kitties. And we really just want to take this opportunity to go over a little bit more about their body language, handling cues for just working with them, a little bit more from a proactive stance so that you can anticipate their behavior and then act accordingly. So we are going to talk about approaching and handling kitties. And of course, just some frequently asked questions that come up from either customers that are in the back, or even if you're talking to a friend or family about maybe how we do something with our cats here in the shelter. Of course, we're going to go over what you actually do with the cats at level two. So we're going to talk about ideas for enrichment, kind of how the shifts work. And of course, if you have any questions after this, you can reach out to me directly. So the first thing that we point out here is one of the challenges we deal with cats, especially in the shelter environment, is that they bite and scratch sometimes. And not that that can be terribly abnormal, but in a shelter environment, if the bite or the scratch breaks the skin, the kitty has to undergo a 10-day quarantine period. And if it was, not a huge deal, the kitty generally will go back up for adoption. However, that 10 days means they can't be handled, they can't be adopted. And so there's definitely a negative reflection there, right? So when you better understand the feline body language and what they're putting off, then you're able to better handle the kitty. If you know what you're looking at, then you can maybe avoid some of those situations instead of just being reactive, oh my gosh, he got me and I didn't know where that came from. So this is just going to help you be a little bit more aware of what they might be putting off long before they would bite or scratch you. To give a basic overview of feline body language, we first start with more relaxed and content kitties. Usually we're looking for things like their tail being really high. Think of it like you're jiggling food and they come over to you with high little tails, excited to see you. That's a very social affiliative type behavior. When we look at their eyes, we can look at these two down here at the bottom. The pupils are the black parts of the eye, and those should not be dilated. So usually just like an almond shape is normal. But when we see those pupils get really big, and you'll see that in a minute, that does indicate some level of what we call overstimulation, arousal, stress, etc. Ears should be forward and pointing towards you, meaning they're interested in you. And that'll make more sense when you see, what we're looking at when they're not comfortable. Purring is almost always a sign of contentment. It can occasionally be distress. I don't know that I've ever seen it in this environment be distress, but to give context, I once had a cat that was hit by a car that was purring. So I obviously took the context of that. Purring can mean pain or distress, but again, you're usually looking at the full picture to determine that. Um, Laying down and stretching out generally just means that they're not too stressed out about what's going on. Usually, if a kitty is uncomfortable, they're going to pull all their extremities in tight. So, if they're nice and loose and stretched out, usually they're not too stressed out about what's going on. Cats can also do something called slow blinks. They're called kitty kisses when they are really content. My cat used to make biscuits and then would look at me and just do like very soft blinks. Interestingly enough, you can actually do it back to them sometimes, and it will be kind of a conversation, but that does usually show deep contentment. So those are more of your social and then also relaxed cats, right? They're comfortable. When we look at our more anxious or fearful cats, and this population is probably pretty big in the shelter environment just because this is a stressful place to be. So usually with these guys, you're going to see first, we see these huge pupils. You can take a look at that and see how big the pupils are there. The ears now go more to the side as opposed to being forward and interested in you. Think of the side as being unsure or anxious about the situation. Usually, again, they're going to have those extremities pulled in tight so you could see the tail against the body, all the feet pulled in tight to the body. They may be avoiding eye contact with you, maybe attempts to hide or escape, which is all just saying, hey, I'm really stressed out and I just either don't want to be seen by you or I want to get out of this environment entirely. Usually you feel like they have a lot of body tension. It feels like if you would touch them, they would just shudder. So all of that's going to be stress and fear usually based. Cats, as well as dogs, can do something called lip licking, where they flick their tongue out and up. And this is not when they're eating. This is usually paired with a lot of these other stress signals. But typically, when you talk about a fight or a flight response, these guys are probably more in the, if they have a choice, a flight response, right? They're scared, they're stressed, they would rather just get out of that situation. But of course, any animal that feels cornered that then doesn't have an option to escape could kick into a fight response if they felt like they needed to defend themselves. When we compare that to what we would call more of your actually irritated or aggressive cats, usually the behavior becomes a little bit more of the overt fight response. So you're getting more of that frontal kind of offensive behavior. Usually these are cats that you're going to hear more vocalizations from, the growling, the yowling, the hissing. You will still see dilated pupils because they're not happy, but check out those ears. The ears are now flat back. They're not just to the side. Extremities are pulled in tight, but this may even be reaching out at you, swatting at you. This is really saying, hey, if you come near me, I will come after you. Now, the reality is both of these are fear-based usually. But these guys down here, the irritated aggressive, they're usually social cats. And by social, I don't mean that they're being social in that moment, but social just that they are used to people. They're just unhappy or stressed in this environment. A lot of our feral cats actually fall more into this category because they are more like wildlife. They're not socialized with people at all. So theirs is actually very deep fear, much like any wildlife would have if they were in captivity. Um, so usually you are looking for more of this relaxed kind of laid back behavior. You want to slow down and use caution with these guys. And certainly if they're growling and yowling and lunging at you, do not open the kennel. And we'll go over some of these in person so that you can see maybe some of these behaviors. So we talk a lot about some words that just indicate on the energy spectrum an animal becoming more uncomfortable. And why is that? And some of the words that we use are arousal, which actually just means any kind of heightened physiological state that can be the precursor to any behavior. So it just basically says, and this is with people too, if that's easier for you to think about, when you talk about an energy spectrum, if you are becoming more aroused or more heightened and that energy is building, whether it's because you're in pain, whether it's because you're upset about something, you're emotional about something, you're angry about something, whatever it is, as that energy builds, that energy has to go somewhere. So usually there's a behavior coming as that energy builds, right? So if you're really upset with somebody and you get into an argument, as those voices escalate, words are said, somebody may storm out or slam a door, the energy became more aroused, and then your behavior at the end of that is the behavior. So we look at a lot of this with animals because cats in particular can become what we call overstimulated. And it can be for a variety of reasons. It could be because they're really, really nervous. It could be because they're in pain. It could be because they're irritated. They don't like other animals. They don't like certain sounds or smells. But the one that I like to point out to volunteers is that it can also be because they're really playful. So if they're in a super predatory mode and they're super amped up, overstimulated, aroused because they're feeling playful, you can actually see that then lead into some behaviors that might get you in trouble. So this kitty, you can just see him in the tissue box. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. He's playing in a tissue box, but he's obviously alert. Those pupils are starting to dilate. He's very focused on whatever that is. But if you're paying attention to this cat, I would not, if I'm a volunteer, stick my hand in, because what is this cat likely going to do, right? Either bat or bite or jump at you, because he's waiting for you to do it. He's playing, but that doesn't mean that it wouldn't result in a bite or a scratch, even if it's in play. The quarantine result is still the same, regardless of the intention of the bite or the scratch. So this is really just the heads up to volunteers to be a bit more aware. If I've got a kitty like this that's starting to build on that energy spectrum, I might want to use a toy to reach in that box. I might use something else so that when he does bat or bite it, that it's not your hand, right? So just being a little bit more nervous, can not be the only reason that they are heightened. It can also just because they, are playful. We're going to talk a little bit about approaching a cat, how they become overstimulated, what that looks like, and then tips to approach and handle and pick them up and all of those things. The first thing I actually want to start with here is letting you watch a video. This video is actually mostly quiet, I think. It's just showing somebody petting a cat, but what it shows is how subtle the cues are as the cat starts to become overstimulated from the touching. And so we're going to start playing this here. And when you first watch the video, the cat is enjoying the pets from the person. Why do I know that? Because the cat is leaning into it. When the person pauses their petting, the cat seeks it out again. So in the beginning, the cat is saying, hey, I like that, please continue. Notice that the person is petting the head, the chin, the cheeks. These are all places that kitties like to rub scent in. And so those are usually going to be safer places to pet a cat. If you notice there, the cat kind of sought that attention back. And this goes on for a little bit. The first thing that you'll notice, though, in a minute is that the cats stop seeking attention from the person. As a matter of fact, they actually kind of pull their head back here in a minute. We're going to watch for that. Oh, no, a little bit more, a little bit more. Okay, we're not quite there yet. The cat, though, will pull back, and then you're going to start to see that not only does the cat not seek attention, I think the pullbacks, yep, right there. So it pulls back from the hand, and then the person decides to go full body pet. And when that happens, I want you to pay attention to the tail. So first, we've got the cat who's no longer engaging, actually pulled back from the person. And when this hand goes full body, I want you to pay attention to that tail right there. These are all signs that the cat has enjoyed the petting up to this point, but doesn't want any more. They're kind of like having a roommate that really, they might enjoy you for a little bit, but then they want to go do their own thing, right? And they'll tell you when that is, and you need to be respectful of that. So what you're seeing right now is that the cat is content. He had a nice, interactive session there with the person, but then said, hey, I'm good. And now I'm really happy and content. But the rolling over on their belly, they don't want you to touch their belly. And a lot of people do confuse that sometimes, thinking that maybe that's what they want. Usually if I pet my cat's stomach, he's going to grab me and bat me because they don't usually like to be touched there. So let's talk about approaching a cat for the first time. So first of all, use your sing-song Disney princess voice. It's very helpful with social cats. They generally like to be talked to. So being totally silent can be weird. So talk to them. Maybe turn to the side or kneel down if they're starting to give you the impression that they're a little bit nervous. So just to not appear so big and blocking of their space. So you can kind of turn to the side, avert your eyes, and just be a bit more passive in your approach. Also, if you're trying to coax them over to you, use toys or treats or jiggle food to try to get them to come over. That can be really helpful. If the cat's coming over to you, you're already winning half the battle, right? Where to pet, I mentioned this already, but the head, the chin, the cheeks, all of those are going to be really great. The less is more tip is that cats don't like a lot of manhandling generally. So like the tricks with petting cats is a bit of a give take. It's kind of a scratch your head, scratch your cheek, stop, and then let them seek it back from you so that it's kind of a push-pull interaction. You may have to pick the cat up. Maybe you're taking them to the playroom. Maybe you're taking them out for a customer. But if you do want to pick the cat up, that's okay. I'm just usually trying to determine, is the cat like jumping out the front of the kennel like a lot of kittens will do? Are they more social neutral, or are they all the way at the back of the kennel hiding? And then I want to kind of adjust my approach a little bit. So we're going to practice all three of those in person. If the kitten's just rushing the front of the kennel, then I'm basically like barely opening the front and like holding the kitten so he doesn't fall out of the kennel. If it's more social neutral, that's ideal because then you can just spend a little time getting to know each other before you actually pick them up. And if they're all the way at the back, I'm going to move much slower. I might use a pipe cleaner or a toy to be like, hi, how are you? Just to see maybe how reactive they are. But I'm not going to just go in like this and drag them out if they're feeling really stressed. So I might take my time a little bit with those guys. When you do pick them up, you do want to support the cat entirely. One of the worst things people do is hold a cat all the way out here. Animals feel really uncomfortable when they're off all fours. They need to put their feet down. And so you really want to hold them against your chest so that they feel supported. There is a technique of applying a little bit of pressure to the scruff of their neck, which is where the mama cat holds them. That can afford a little bit more control if you've got a cat that's squirmy or a little nervous, so that you can safely get them from point A to point B. And we're going to practice that in person. Now, the when to let go is just, they're not, if a cat really freaks out on you and you're holding it, you've done everything right, but for whatever reason, maybe a door slams, dog's barking, and the cat is just like, I'm leaving you, I'm freaking out, hissing, biting, swatting, squirming. I would rather you let the cat go. Just you're inside, you're not outside. So just let the cat go, shut the doors so that they're, secured to the room, and then come find a staff member and say, hey, I've got a loose cat. We would rather deal with a loose cat, just getting them back, than you being bitten and scratched and having to file those reports and the cat going on quarantine and all of that. So if it's a situation where, you feel like it's a bucking bronco, you do not have to hold on for dear life. I would rather you just let the cat go. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about cats in the shelter environment specifically, and just remembering that even if you have cats at home, and I'm suspecting a lot of you probably do or have, it is a different ballgame than cats in your home, just because of all these different variables that we have going on and how that can affect them. So first, I just want to go over the flow of cats at our shelter so that you understand what that process is and what all the different rooms are and how everything works. So as far as how kitties come into the shelter, for the most part, there's some variations, but for the most part, they're coming in either as an owner surrender or a stray. So with an owner surrender, that means an owner, they came from an owner, we know where they're coming from, and they're signing them over to us. We're going to look at them behaviorally and medically. But the reality is most of those outcomes are going to be adoption, unless there is a very severe medical or behavioral concern. Where it gets a little more diversified is stray cats. So when a cat comes in as a stray, the very first thing we're going to do is scan for a microchip. If a cat or any animal has a microchip, that's actually what dictates ownership. And so the first thing we're going to do is scan for that microchip. And if they do have a chip, then we're going to hold that cat for 7 days to attempt to find the owner. So when there's a microchip, that means hold up, nothing else happening. Let's see if we can get this owner so that the cat can go home. But if there is no microchip, then we have some other options. And so let's just say it was a kitten under 8 weeks old or a mom and babies. That generally is more appropriate for a foster care situation because they're not adoptable age yet. So we may be seeking foster care for them. Potentially transferring to a rescue, depending on the situation. Adoption is an option. Euthanasia is on the table for pretty much severe medical reasons, but we also have the option called return to home. And the return to home cats are almost all either feral cats / community cats that have a good body condition. They obviously have a food source. They're doing fine where they are. So what we're going to do is spay neuter, tip their ear, and put them back. Occasionally RTH can be, we think that they have an owner. An example would be, you live in a neighborhood, you just go outside, you find a cat, it's perfectly healthy, and you rush it to the shelter and say, I found this cat, he's lost. It's a bit short-sighted because the cat could very easily belong to somebody in the neighborhood, and unless you have direct evidence that that animal's been abandoned or is in bad condition, in all likelihood, it belongs to somebody. It's obviously got a good body condition, it's healthy, so we're just going to make sure they're not going to have babies, and we're going to put them back. To kind of define the cat rooms, cat adoption and the playroom are the two main areas that you will be spending time. Cat adoption includes the kitten room, which is like that very front room that you see from the hallway, and the U room. Both of those areas house adoptable cats and kittens, and that's perfectly fine for you to be spending time in. The playroom is kind of sandwiched in the middle of the U room, and that's really for individual playtime for adoptable cats or kittens. Customers can also use it. I will ask with the playroom that you're a little bit aware if there's a customer back there, because that would take precedent over you spending time in the playroom. So if you do see that there's a customer back there, I would just ask that you step out so that we can use it for them. It is generally just for individual playtime, but if kittens or cats are physically in the same kennel, they could come out for playtime together. So if it's a litter of kittens and you just want to let them run all around together, that is perfectly fine. The other 3 rooms, there's 2 more in that main hallway called Healthy Hold and the RTH room. So we can go over those in person, but basically Healthy Hold and RTH just means these cats are not currently available. The RTH room should be mostly destined for spay neuter and then putting them back. The Healthy Hold is just, they're on hold for different reasons. It might be because they have that microchip and we're trying to track it down. It might be a mama cat and kittens waiting to go into foster care. It might be an owner surrender cat that's a little nervous and we're just giving her a few extra days until we make her adoptable. So just understanding that the animals that are in those back 2 rooms are not available for adoption, which means no interacting with them and no pictures. And also, if you have, inevitably, you'll see something that is adorable and you have a question, and you may always ask. So that's perfectly fine if you're just curious about what somebody's situation is, but please just don't take liberties with the cats in those rooms. The only other ward for cats is at the very back of the building. It's like right when you're about to walk out the back door, last door on the right. And that is where we're going to house our sick kitties, usually bad upper respiratory, scabies, or ringworm. Typically, there's a contagion factor, but we also want to make sure that the medical team can oversee their treatment. So they're housed a little closer to where the vet team is. You are responsible for taking cats out of kennels and making sure to put them back in the same kennel. That sounds really silly, but when we're like the height of being full and there's multiple kennels with multiple litters of all black kittens, it can get confusing at times who came from where. So just always make a mental note out of where you're taking them from so that they're going back in the same room or same kennel. We've gone over the playroom rules. It is one cat at a time unless cats are from the same kennel. You're also welcome if the playroom's being used or you don't want to use it, you can just interact, open the cat condo and interact with the kitty at the kennel front. The cat condos are big enough that the cat can get up high, get away from you, move around in their environment. So it can also be appropriate just for you to interact with them there. We do have a cat whiteboard that's similar to our dog walking board that houses basically all the information as far as who the cats are in which kennels, how they came in, types of enrichment, things about their personality. And so we'll go over that cat board and how to use it. The goal really is that we diversify the enrichment that they get so that it's not all cats are getting the same toy, 3 times a day. We want to make sure that we're diversifying that for them between the different volunteer shifts. So while this is a recording, I won't pose the question, but instead just tell you, but we do have kind of a main illness. There are many illnesses that cats can get, but in a kennel setting, shelters, even vets offices, any kennel setting with cats, the upper respiratory infections are usually really rampant and pretty prevalent. It's a very frustrating strain that most places deal with at some point. It's very contagious. The upper respiratory infections that infect kitties they're airborne, so sneezing, coughing, but fomites are inanimate surfaces. So like the kennel doors, the cage card holders, your shirt, just anything that they've sneezed on, that they've touched, it can very easily spread to another cat. It's why we take the kennel doors off the cat kennels after a cat has left and put them through the sanitizing machine because it's one added layer of disinfecting that. It is not contagious to you or dogs. It is a strain usually between cats, but because it is so contagious, one of our big things with spending time with our cats is that you are either washing your hands and or sanitizing in between every single cat that you interact with. On top of that, if you are going to do any of our kennel cleaning in the morning, we do ask that you actually change gloves in between every single kennel. And that's been pretty successful, but the main thing here is just to remember not to go kennel to kennel to kennel, touch, 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 because if somebody's sick, you can very easily spread that and also spread it to animals at home as well. So things that you might be looking for an upper respiratory, clear colored nasal drainage. It's really anything that we would have with a cold. Sneezing, coughing, eye discharge, lethargy, fever, a loss of appetite, all of these can be symptoms. It's not so much that it's any different from our cold, but it's the way that the cold affects the feline system. It can turn into pneumonia and they can get severe pretty quickly. And so we generally try to nip it in the bud as quickly as we can. This is just a reminder that, hey, you're helping out with many animals at the shelter. And because we do deal with these upper respiratory and different viruses here, it's just a friendly reminder to when you get home, wash your shelter clothes, take a shower, do what a good veterinarian would do. If you notice an illness in a kitty or any symptoms that you're concerned about, if it's urgent, then of course just come find somebody. But otherwise, I have a medical observation log right outside my office that you can fill out. I will say that probably one of the more urgent symptoms in cats, if you ever see a sedentary cat in our kennel, open mouth breathing or panting, that can be a more urgent indicator that something's wrong. So that would be something I wouldn't note in the book. But otherwise, any of those other symptoms we talked about, nasal drainage, just seeming kind of punky, that stuff can all be noted. And then we'll go from there as far as what needs to happen with their treatment. So just some frequently asked questions that do come up in the cat ward, maybe why the cat was surrendered or how the cat came into us. On your first day doing this, we're going to go over how to use our computer system. So if you're curious about looking that up, you can read absolutely anything that is in our computer system. So if you want to just know it was an owner surrender and why did they surrender and what did they say about the cat, you can look at all of those notes. So I'll show you how to do that. What does FIV positive mean? So there may be a few cats that are labeled as FIV positive. It's a virus kind of like HIV, but the feline version. It's not a death sentence or anything like that, but it's a virus that compromises the immune system. In other words, they don't have a great immune system. So they're more likely to catch something and they have a harder time fighting off whatever it would be. It's again not a death sentence and it's not highly contagious. So it's not like they're going to sneeze or breathe on or share a litter box with another cat and they're going to give the other cat FIV. It's usually only spread via deep bite wounds. So like male tomcats who are fighting in the streets, things like that is generally how it's spread. So they can live with other cats. The main thing is just doing slow introduction so there's not some huge cat fight. But as long as you're doing a slow introduction and making sure everybody gets along, then it's generally fine. We recommend them to be inside only cats just because they aren't able to fight things off very easily. And so you wouldn't want to expose them to a lot of stuff outside. But yeah, they usually live long and happy lives with basic routine veterinary care. So I feel like FIV positive can sound really scary if you don't know what it is, but it's definitely not and isn't, especially with a little bit of education. What is a barn cat? So you may see signs that label kitties as barn cats, or a lot of times we'll put the cat's name, dash, and then the word barn. Like we had one recently, Apple Barn was one. These kitties are not dangerous or bad cats by any stretch of the imagination, but we do sometimes deal with gray area cats that are not highly social, and I can't advertise them as the next social lap cat that you're going to have or family friendly. But RTH was not an option for whatever reason. And we can handle them. We can do what we need to do, but they might just either be easily overstimulated or maybe they're just a little more shut down. And so sometimes we have people that are looking for mousers or more like an indoor outdoor situation where the cat, like people have property here. So maybe they have a barn or some land. And so outdoor placement or indoor outdoor can sometimes be a good option and a good happy medium for cats that may be more difficult to place in like a social household. Have barn cats changed into social house cats? Absolutely. But this is just a way that we can market them to get them out of here and take euthanasia off the table. So what's included, how much is it to adopt a cat? And you may have customers that are back there. One thing that's different about the cats versus the dogs is that you actually do have customers walking around the cat ward. So they might ask. Our feline adoption fee is going to be $20. And that $20 includes everything you see on the right. So the spay neuter surgery, vaccines, FVRCP and rabies are the main two vaccines for our cats. We microchip them, we register the microchip, deworming, any behavioral assessment notes, and any medications that had been prescribed. So that is an all-inclusive list. The part on the vaccines where it says age appropriate is really referring to kittens, just like puppies and just like kids. They need usually several rounds of boosters before they're considered fully vaccinated. And so we will have boosted the kitten up until is age appropriate. But if an adopter adopts something at say 8 or 10 weeks, they may have to finish those vaccines out at a vet's office. No animal may be adopted unaltered. So if the animal is not spayed or neutered yet, they can still adopt the animal as far as it's theirs, but you might see a sign that says adoption pending. And that just means that we need to get the surgery done. So basically, if the animal's not adopted, not altered, then they go on hold and the person will pick up the day that that surgery is done. If the animal is spayed or neutered, they do leave that very same day. So last but not least, we're going to talk about feline enrichment, which really delves more into what you're going to be doing with the cat specifically. But before we get into that, I do like to clarify what enrichment is, why we use it, and why it's so important. Because yes, we're asking you to play with cats, but there is a bigger picture to it. I first learned about enrichment in college. I went to Disney's Animal Kingdom for a zoology class, and they obviously at Animal Kingdom have a lot of animals in captivity, gorillas and lions and all kinds of things. Whenever you have an animal in captivity, that's not normal for that animal. So they're going to be stressed because they can't do the things that they're used to doing, and they're not in an environment that they naturally would be in, which can cause stress. It would in people as well. So generally with enrichment, you're looking at environmental enrichment, which is the environment that they would need to be in to feel as normal as possible. And then behavioral enrichment is the ability for that animal to perform behaviors that are normal for that species. So they're looking at those things in order to let the animal be as normal as possible, which then in turn reduces stress. So that was with a zoo. They actually have something called a species-specific plan for every single animal. So if you're looking at, let's say, a lion, since we're talking about cats, they need the ability to get up high and observe. They need the ability to scratch and use their claws or stalk things. They love water, whether it's getting in it or lapping it. And so they're looking at how to provide all of these things. When we talk about animals in a shelter, they are in captivity. It is not normal for cats and dogs to be in cages, for months at a time. So the shelter environment is a stressful place to be. We try so hard to make it this positive thing for the animals, but the reality is this is not ideal for them. And so in order to reduce their stress, we want to apply both environmental and behavioral enrichment. And so with the environmental stuff, things like those cat condos that they're in, they used to just be in cages. When I first started, it was just a simple box, stainless steel box. And in all the one box, they had a towel, their food, their water, and their litter box. And they had just enough room to maybe stand up in place. That was not great for them, right? It's one thing if it's a vet's office and your cat's there for the day for an exam. It's an entirely different thing when they're here for months or even a year at a time. So the cat condos, we know that their litter box needs to be separate from their food and water. We know that cats prefer that. We know that cats want to get up high. If they want to hide, we might put something called a hidey towel in front of the kennel so that they feel like they're, have a place to get out of your line of sight. In the playroom itself, cats don't like to be on the ground with you looking down at them. They generally want to feel like they have more control. And so we put some perches up on the walls in the playroom to let the kitties get up and kind of observe and be more eye level with you. That is by no means a perfect system, but those are attempts at that concept. Some shelters even have like a community cat room with a big glass window where the cats can look out at squirrels and birds. That is definitely environmental enrichment for them to actually observe the birds and be actually social with other cats at the same time. So yes, we are asking you to play with cats, but the goal here is that if they're less stressed, then they're eating and their immune system is staying strong, and then we're able to spay neuter and we have healthy, more adoptable cats that we can move more quickly. So there is a strategy to this. So what should you do with the cats while you're back there? We do have a whole bunch of supplies. Much of this was actually developed by volunteers and ideas from them. Lasers can be a really fun one. Lasers can be interactive play. It can just be visual stimulation for them. But laser pointers could be used in the kennel, in the playroom. Both are great. Cats love to follow lasers. Ping pong balls, it's both an activity and sometimes visual. Kittens generally like the ping pong balls more so than the adult cats. They're lightweight and they can bat them around really easily. Catnip can be really fun. We have catnip spray. We have actual catnip. There's even catnip balls that you can stick on the side of the kennel that they can actually rub against, which can be really fun. There are scratching posts that we hang up in the kennel so that scratching serves a multitude of purposes. They can stretch against it. They can scratch their claws. It is stress relief, scent marking, lots of good things to do with scratching. They love that. Pipe cleaners are fun. We tie pipe cleaners to the kennel for interactive play. You can use the pipe cleaner with them. As I mentioned earlier, you got kind of a nervous cat. I usually can I just pet your head with the pipe cleaner? Because if they're going to react, I'd rather them react on the pipe cleaner. Canned food or tuna, a little bit on the end of a popsicle stick. It can stimulate their sense of smell and also encourage them to come to the front of the kennel. Interactive play is great. We have the playroom. We have a big exercise wheel that's in there, especially with some of our sedentary overweight kitties. Getting them to move around and encouraging that is great. To stimulate their sense of hearing, they love the sound of bird noises. We do have some speakers that we can use back there, but they're probably my best idea for that is there are a lot of free apps on your phone that you can download that play birdsong noises, and many other types of apps that interact with cats can be a great way to interact with them and super easy and free on your phone to download. Some people, I've had volunteers teach them to walk on a harness, and then they'll walk them on the harness in the cat hallway. And if on a quiet day, maybe even just outside the cat ward. Target or clicker training, maybe teaching the cat to come to the front of the kennel and touch their nose on something. It's a pretty easy exercise to teach, and you can use canned food or something yummy to get them started with that. So we can go over that. But we do want to talk about FAS, which is fear, anxiety, and stress. And that we do, of course, with cats. If they're stressed, then they're not going to really enjoy any of these other activities. So we do implement something called Feel Away. If you've never heard of it, it is a calming pheromone. It is man-made. It communicates familiar surroundings to reduce stress. They come in both a spray and diffusers, but Feel Away is just, there's no overdosing them on it. So it's not like, oh my God, have they had too much Feel Away? But it's a great way to start your shift. So if you're just walking back to the cat ward for the first time, you want to meet everybody, you can go kennel to kennel and just maybe do 1 or 2 sprays on their towel, a blanket, a toy. It's also great for those kitties that are a little bit more nervous, and we give them a Heidi towel that blocks half of their kennel. A couple of sprays on that might be great. You want to check the plugins. There's multiple plugins that are in all of the cat wards, so you want to check those, make sure those are full, and that's basically disseminating that out into the room. And you can just throw away the empty cartridges. But we do use Feel Away. Many vets' offices use it. Cats that have behavior issues, most vets are going to start with this first before they move on to anything else. It's a pretty effective pheromone that does help reduce stress in kitties. So options for you at level 2 and kind of what the shifts look like. So if you are a morning person, 8 to 10 is really appreciated coming in to clean and feed the cats. Now, while we do have level 1s that can do the same thing, and even the court ordered folks that might help with cleaning the cats, we really love it when we have people that are a bit more trained in cats, that are cat people coming in to help clean and feed, because they're generally going to do just a more thorough job maybe than somebody else might do, especially if they're here for court ordered reasons and they're not super passionate, about the animals. But this is coming in and making sure the cats are totally cleaned, fed, watered, and we'll go over details about that in a sec. As we get more comfortable with you, we may even have you help in the feral and the stray areas. Now, the feline friend shifts are probably the more popular. Those do run every single day, starting at 10 to 12, and then they roll in 2-hour time blocks through to about 4 to 6. This is socializing the cats, occasionally light cleaning, building personality profiles, writing on their kennel cards, and then of course providing enrichment. So making sure everybody has what they need, whether it's someplace to hide or a toy or interactive play, and then marking that on the cat board. So to go over these in more detail, for the morning cat care shift, the first thing that you would want to do is make sure that your carts that are kept in the very back 2 rooms are restocked appropriately, so that there's food in the food containers, the water jug is full, towels and rags are on the cart for cleaning and putting new bedding in their kennels, fresh bowls, that the cat litter is filled, gloves, and newspaper for lining their kennels. I would want to empty all the trash cans, and then I would want to grab 2 shopping carts from the back. One is to stock clean stuff in, and one is to throw your dirty stuff in. Generally, you're going to start in the front kitten room and then work your way into the U room. We do have you change gloves in between every kennel. You are pulling out all the dirty stuff, and if a cat is totally left, everything gets thrown away, save for the bowls and the towels. The cleaning solution that we used, it's called either A-Cell or Rescue. They're actually the same thing, which is really confusing, but A-Cell or Rescue says it on the bottle. And it is a clear solution. As a PSA, because somebody once cleaned with Windex, it is not blue. It is a clear solution. If you're ever confused about what you should use to clean, just let us know. But yeah, this is making sure that the kitties are fed. They're usually all screaming at you when you start, and then it's all peaceful and quiet once they have all eaten breakfast and they're relaxed. Now, the feline friendships will usually have you go through and do Feel Away, check all the kennels for enrichment, check for cat scratchers, check for shoe boxes. We will put shoe boxes in their kennel and line them with something soft so that they can get down in it. Check their water bowls to make sure that they're fresh. We don't want the water bowls too full because they're on that moving door, so they'll spill, but about 3/4 of the way full is perfect. Spot cleaning as needed. We don't ever scoop litter boxes because you would cross-contaminate with a pooper scooper. So if you really just got a stinky kennel, if the whole litter box doesn't need to get pitched, then what we usually suggest is just go grab one of the dog poop bags, grab the mess, and then just toss the little bag. And then socialize with each other, with the customers coming in, and more importantly, with the cat. You're encouraged to take pictures, and anybody that is adoptable, you are more than welcome to post them. So that's it. Obviously, I can't take any questions from you, but if you do have any just burning questions or want to talk about something first, please reach out and email me. But otherwise, all you're going to need to do is check your account. Your settings should now, at the completion of this, show that you are trained to sign up for these level 2 shifts. And I just need to know what your first day will be so that we can set that up for an in-person tour and a little bit of training on behavior and handling. Thanks so much for attending, and reach out if you have any questions. Have a good day.